where are you with that series? And is it as simple as there's just no answer for Jimmy Butler if he plays?
Yeah, that's my analysis. It's pretty simple if you watch the Bucks series or if you've watched the playoffs the last few years with Jimmy. This is a guy who was averaging 35.5 points a game. And by the way, the thing that doesn't get brought up with Jimmy enough is he's diving for more loose balls than anybody else on the court. He's out there hustling and deflecting passes. They're going to need him. If his ankle is ready to go, I still like Miami in this series, Max. Mm-hmm. But if he's limited or unable to play, this is the Knicks series to lose. It's that simple. It's all going to come down to the availability of Jimmy Butler, because what we've seen from him in that Bucks series and in previous ones, he's good enough to take this team, a Miami team. I love Jalen Rose's explanation or description of this team as the Navy SEALs of the NBA. They need Jimmy Butler, but if they get him, the rest of those Navy SEALs are going to take the Knicks out. I think.
Kirk, but so every year it seems Jimmy Butler's a top 10 to 15 player, at least in popular opinion. And then the playoffs start and you go, oh, wait a minute, he's a top 5 player. But if 2/3 of the teams are still playing after the regular season and over half are in the official playoffs, seems to me that a guy who's top 5 with the really high leverage games, maybe he's just a top 5 player. When you kind of do a weighted average, where do you have Jimmy Butler in the NBA?
We're a playoff league. He's a top 10 player. But you're right. He disguises it. It's like a rope-a-dope thing, right? I don't care about the first 82 rounds. I need to win 16 games between mid-April and mid-June. That's what he is built for. And we've seen it too many times now, Max, to not label him. And I think we're all guilty of this in ESPN and in sports analysis. And so look at those regular season stats and really just lean on them a little too much. I think pro basketball is a different beast in the springtime, and that's where Jimmy Butler is legitimately one of the most terrifying superstars in the league. And if he hasn't proven it to you yet, I don't know what you've been watching. I have him easily as a top 10 player when you factor that in.
Kirk Goldsberry, ladies and gentlemen, and if you follow him on Twitter, and I do, I'm constantly looking. What do you notice? He'll show you the efficiency graph, the charts. What do you notice? Oh, let me see the graph. Oh, yeah, look at that. That team is actually good. I highly recommend him to follow at Kirk Goldsberry. Thank you, Kirk. Appreciate it.
You heard what Kirk said.
Anytime, Max.
About that, Max.
What's that?
If you're not watching, then you don't know what you're looking at. That's what he's letting their people know. When you start making assumptions, got to pay close attention to it.
Indeed. Pay close attention to this. Lamar Jackson, for the first time in his professional career, has a new offensive coordinator and top flight, it seems, potentially top flight receivers.
Security. Top flight security?
Receivers. And you would imagine with what he got paid, top flight security. What does this mean for his passing game? Because Lamar has some lofty goals. You're going to get into that coming up. KJM.
Lamar Jackson, especially considering circumstances right now with Joel Embiid coming back, that games 3 and 4 in Philly, I think are games that Philly needs to win.
Coach Jay, can you please give the Phoenix Suns the game plan on how to stop your favorite player in NBA history, the Joker?
First off, DeAndre Ayton is going to have to be a man. They're going to have to start treating him like he was the first pick in the draft. I think there's a level of accountability with the Phoenix Suns, and there seems to be a lot of excuses, and I get that, around Kevin Durant parachuting into this team and CP3. But I think what's happened is we've seen Ayton's mentality diminish slowly over time with not even being an option on the floor. And a lot of that has to be centered around Monty Williams' offense. This can no longer be an offense where it's your go, my go, as relates to Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant needs to get to the free throw line. Monty Williams needs to remind Kevin Durant that we are not just a mid-range jump shooting team. Be aggressive, attack. Let's actually prioritize DeAndre Ayton, because with CP3 being out, you need to prioritize another scorer on your team. Now, DeAndre Ayton, when he is featured, has shown you the ability to do that. But it can't be your go, my go, because when it's that way with their offense, DeAndre Ayton just turns into a defensive player and a guy that just roams offensively. He needs to be featured.
Especially can't be your go, Devin Booker, right? Like if Kevin Durant would be my go a little bit more, if he would impose himself a little bit more, he would be a little more aggressive.
Well, but also where are our continuity sets? Like what sets are featuring DeAndre Ayton on the block? What features, DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker in a pick and roll saying, hey, when you come off, I want to feed Ayton multiple times. Say just D-Book, take 50 shots. They need to feature him. And as it relates to Denver, Denver's going to do what Denver does. Jamal Murray didn't have a good game in game 2, and they still won. Like Aaron Gordon, they're going to defend. They're going to increase the tempo of the game, and Jokic is going to be featured. That matchup between Ayton and Jokic, if Jokic is able to dominate that, and that determines the series, I firmly believe that this series is over anyway.
Jay,
do the Suns win tonight, Jay? Hold on. Let's lock it in. Do the Suns win tonight?
I'm not going to lock it in yet because I got a question, Jay. Max?
Well, we could still ask a question. I just want to make sure we lock it in.
I don't want to lock it in.
All right, go ahead. Ask the question, then we'll lock it in.
You can lock it in afterwards. With all that you just said, Jay, do the Suns need more player movement? Not ball movement, but player movement. Not just standing around looking at KD, standing around looking at Book. Do they need to be able to move around?
So Pop said this to me one time, Key, during USA Basketball. He said, hey, are you a spectator or are you a player? And I think what happens is with Phoenix, you have a lot of players on the court who are spectators, who are just standing around watching Kevin Durant, watching Devin Booker do their thing. They're not players.
Yeah.
But that's also the job of this whole series, regardless of CP3 being out, has put the emphasis on Monty Williams and the schemes that he has to get players involved and not have other players outside of KD and Devin Booker be spectators and be more players.
Bigger pressure to make adjustments, Monty Williams or Darvin Ham?
Why is there a big?
I am asking because it seemed to. You seem to.
Well, there's more. It feels like there's more pressure on Monty Williams because they're down.
That's what it sounded like to me. It sounded like to me.
There couldn't be pressure on Steve Kerr.
Putting the question to Monty Williams
Max,
whether he can make adjustments.
Who has more pressure?
That's right.
He loves those questions.
Yes.
Why
I love the athletes. Former athletes always like. Why are we doing things that will generate interest and make us money? We should stop.
I feel like you always tell me how smart you are. Yes. I feel like you should know the answer to that question already.
And I'm playing radio with you. Yes.
So
in other words, it
seems
to me that when I asked about Darvin Ham making adjustments, actually Key more than you was like, oh, wait a minute, series not over. But here you are putting the question squarely to Monty Williams and seeming to say he's got to make adjustments now.
He has to. I mean, but it's never squarely on one individual match.
Jay, lock it in. Do the Suns win today or not? Lock it in.
You lock it up.
You lock it in.
You lock it up. Suns. I would. Yates, what's the spread tonight?
Doesn't matter. Suns win at home.
It does. I'm just curious.
Suns win at home.
I don't know. I don't think it's that easy.
When Jay eventually locks it in, I'll tell you that Lock It In is brought to you by Gorilla for the toughest jobs on planet Earth.
I will take Denver tonight. I think even with the prolific offensive performance by KD and Devin Booker, Denver wins.
Denver wins. That's locked in?
Phoenix -4 spread tonight. Yeah, Denver.
Are you sure it's locked?
It's locked.
You want to bet, Key? Put 20 on it. Put 20 on it.
More pressure on Darvin Ham.
Pressure on Keyshawn Johnson. Put 20 on it right now.
Or Monty Williams to make adjustments.
You're not.